Hi one and all, Malumedic here. So today we'll be dealing with the chapter Morphology of Flowering Plants under the +1 Botany. So let's have a basic idea. So when was the last time we learned about plants? Yes, you're right, in Plant Kingdom. In Plant Kingdom, we have learned that in the division angiosperms, angiosperms are of two types. They are the dicots and the monocots. Now, in the very same chapter, we have also learned that the male and the female gamete fuses, and what do we call that? Fertilization, to form the zygote. The zygote then develops into embryo. So, in this chapter, we're gonna learn about what happens thereafter. So, what happens thereafter? The embryo develops to form an embryonal axis, and it also forms cotyledons. So what do we understand from here? So we have an embryonal axis, and if it is a dicot, then we have dicotyledons. So these cotyledons are the future leaves. They are the future leaves. These are the cotyledons. They develop to form the future, they are the leaflets of the embryo. And now the embryonal axis is also known by the term tigellum, or you can call it as tigellum. You have to learn these new terms. And then the embryonal axis, the upper part of the embryonal axis is called as plumule. And it is from this plumule that the shoot system arises in plants. And the lower part of the embryonal axis is known as radicle. And it is from the radicle that the root system of the plant arises. I hope you are getting the concepts right. Alright, so here we have the shoot system developing, the root system developing, and also we have learned from where the leaves comes. So now, as you have a basic idea, let's move on to the root system. So let's see what are the types of roots. Alright, I'll just erase this up. Fine. So what are the types of roots? So basically we have three types of roots. So first of all, we have taproot system, and this type of root system is seen in all dicot plants. So basically the angiosperms are divided into two, dicotyledons and monocotyledons, and all the dicot plants have taproot system. So what is this? For example, let's assume this line to be the soils line, and below this we have the root system, right? Alright, so at the base of this stem, the main root or the tap root arises. We call this as the main root or the tap root or the primary root. Alright, and from this we have the secondary roots arising, and from the secondary roots we also have the tertiary roots arising. So you have the primary root, from then you have the secondary root, and from there you have the tertiary roots. So I hope you are clear with what is taproot system. And now let us move on to learn what is fibrous root system. So what is a fibrous root system? So in fibrous root system also, so basically these roots develop from where? From the radicle of embryonal axis. Okay. So now regarding the fibrous root system, so at the base of the stem, okay, from radicle we have the primary root developing in the case of fibrous root system also. But what happens is that this primary root degenerates and it is replaced by several multiple roots arising from the base of the stem. Alright, so this forms the fibrous root system, and almost all the monocot plants are having fibrous root system. So as you are clear with the taproot and fibrous root system, now let us learn what is adventitious root system. So, if the root develops from anywhere apart from the radical of the embryonal axis from which it's actually meant to arise, then it's known as adventitious system, not from radical. So suppose if it develops from the lower nodes of stem. Don't worry about what are nodes. I'll teach you regarding this when we learn the shoot system. Lower nodes of stem. Actually, nodes of stem are places where the leaves arises from the stem. So if roots arises from this place, what do we call them? We call them adventitious root system, because the roots are meant to arise from the base of the stem or from the radical of embryonal axis. Here it develops from anywhere other than this place. So in adventitious system, you are required to learn few examples like monstera. So in botany, you have to learn few examples too. Monstera, banyan tree and sugar cane. They are having adventitious root system. So I hope this is clear with you. And now let's learn about the parts of roots. So before this, I will teach you how to draw a diagram. So you have to draw a conical like structure, and at the tip you have to thicken or darken that. So this darkened portion, we call it as the root cap, or else you can call it as calyptrogen. You have to learn all these terms. Then the part above the root cap, alright, the part above the root cap, just above the root cap, we call as area of meristematic activity. And now what is meristematic activity? These terms are new to you, right? So meristematic activity is something like, the cells develop to form tissues. The cells having the same functions form the tissues. So tissues are broadly classified into meristematic and permanent. So the meristematic tissues are those tissues in which the cells have not lost their capacity to divide. Alright, so the cells in the area of meristematic activities are continuously dividing. Alright, and then this region above the area of meristematic activity, we call it as area of elongation. So the cells which arise at the area of meristematic activity, they come to the area of elongation and they proliferate over here. Okay, and then above this you have the area known as the area of maturation. So at the area of maturation, you can also find the permanent tissues. Area of maturation. The area of maturation also have another area, another important area, which is known as, which means they have the root hairs. So what is the function of root hairs? To fetch water from the surrounding soil. So at the area of maturation, you have the root hairs. I hope you are getting the concepts right. So that completes the parts of root. Now let us learn about the modification of root. So before that, I would like to ask you, what are the functions of root? So basically the functions of root are that to absorb water and minerals from the surrounding soil, and then another function is that to provide proper anchorage, because it's the roots which fixes the plant to the soil. Proper anchorage to plants. And then we have another function. Okay, so basically these two are the function of the roots. If the roots perform any other function apart from this, then we call it as the modification of root. So let us see what are the modifications of the taproot system. Taproot system mostly modify for storage. So these plants modify their taproot to form storage. Alright, and we actually take them for our food purposes. So let's see what are the modification. For example, in radish, beetroot, all these are taproot modification. That primary root eventually becomes these vegetables. We call them vegetables, but for plant it's actually a storage place. Turnip, beetroot, carrot, etc. Alright, carrot, etc. These are the modifications of the taproot system, and it's for storage. Now let us see the modifications of the root in fibrous root system. So we have an example of mangrove. So in mangrove trees, the phenomenon that is seen over here is that the mangrove trees usually live in highly saline area or marshy lands, which is very salty area. So what they do is that they send their roots, and these roots comes above the surface of the earth, all right, for respiratory purposes. So that they modify to become what? They modify to become rhizophora. So these roots are known as rhizophora. They have modified to become for respiration. All right. So these roots, if I enlarge this structure, we call them as nematodes. Nematodes. And we have small opening over here, right, for passage of air. So these openings are known as pneumatophore. So nematodes and pneumatophores. So you have to learn about this. Now speaking more about mangroves. Mangroves are viviparous plants, which means here the seed develops, the seed germinates in the soil, right? But in the case of mangrove plants, the seeds actually germinate within the parent plant. Okay, that's the reason why we call it as viviparous plants. You need not think more about that. So what are the modifications of root in adventitious root system? In adventitious root system, we have the modifications like prop root. So what's a prop root? The prop root is seen in plants like banyan tree. So these are the roots growing vertically downwards from the horizontal branches. Suppose this is a banyan tree and this is one of the branches, and from this we have roots developing which comes and touches the soil. Alright, so these roots are called as prop root, and an example is banyan tree. These are the vertically roots growing downwards from the horizontal branches. And then we have another type known as stilt root. And examples are maize, sorghum, and sugarcane. Okay, you need not write sorghum. Maize and sugarcane are just enough. So what are stilt root? These are the roots produced from the lower nodes. Roots produced from lower nodes. All right. So we have seen this when I explained about the adventitious root system. I told you these are the roots which develops from the lower nodes. All right. Then we have something known as clinging roots. Clinging roots. So clinging roots, an example is Vanda. Vanda is also an epiphyte. You will learn this in your subsequent chapters. Now just you have to learn the meaning of clinging roots and an example. So clinging roots are the roots meant for attachment to substratum. So Vanda, actually they are seen on large other trees like mango trees. So these roots help them to attach to the substratum. Alright, and then we have another type of root known as climbing root. Climbing roots are the roots which help the plant to climb up. Okay, an example is piper. So that completes the root system in your NCERT text.